All right, welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep again today. And as always, we're going to be looking at just one single source.
Yeah.
And really trying to squeeze
Yeah.
all the juice we can out of it. And so today, we are looking at a piece from Axios. It's dated January 3rd of 2025. And the headline here is, Johnson, re-elected speaker, despite GOP revolt. So right away.
Ooh.
I mean, very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I saw that headline, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
there's a story here.
yeah, so Mike Johnson re-elected as Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
But there was a revolt within his own party.
Not a sure thing.
And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah, like how does that even...
The mechanics of power.
Right.
How those things work.
Yeah.
How quickly things can change in politics.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean...
He was reelected on the first ballot.
It's very straightforward, right.
Right, which first ballot victory,
Then-
done. Means things are going smoothly.
So clearly not.
Clearly not.
So,
yeah.
So what can you tell us about this?
Well, I think, on the surface,
Yeah.
it seems like, oh, okay, business as usual, new Congress, they elect the speaker.
Okay.
But, anytime you see that word revolt,
Right.
that means that there was some real maneuvering going on. So, the why of it is really the interesting part, right? Like, why was Johnson's leadership even challenged in the first place?
Yeah, and the article, unfortunately, doesn't really give us a ton of detail.
Right.
So we're left kind of speculating. Like,
Reading between the lines.
yeah, like what was this revolt about?
Right.
Was it a formal challenge? Like, did somebody...
Was there another candidate?
Yeah. Was it more behind the scenes?
Is it more of a threat? We're gonna withhold our votes unless you
Right.
promise us X, Y, and Z.
And the article does say it was brief.
Right, it was brief.
And it was unsuccessul.
Unsuccessful.
So what does that tell us?
Well, I think it tells us that, it probably wasn't a full-blown attempt to oust him, but it also tells us that there was enough dissatisfaction within the party to at least make Johnson sweat a little bit.
Right. So you imagine being in his shoes just a second.
Oh, man.
Oh, so.
Talk about a high-pressure situation. You've got your own party kind of nipping at your heels.
And you're trying to lead.
You're trying to lead, right. You're
the House.
the Speaker of the House.
The whole House.
You've got to get things done. So how do you balance those two things?
I mean, it's got to be tough. And I think this is where the fact that it was a first ballot victory becomes really important.
Okay.
Because it sends a message.
It sends a strength.
Right. Even though there was this revolt, he was able to shut it down quickly. He got all the votes he needed on the first ballot.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
You're saying, historically speaking,
Right.
it's a big deal. If you look at past speaker elections, where it's gone to multiple ballots, it just signals weakness.
Right.
And it just invites more challenges. Once people see that you're vulnerable, they're gonna come after you.
Right.
And it makes it much harder to govern effectively.
Right.
You spend all this time putting out fires within your own party, and you don't have time to actually do the work of the people.
Makes sense. So going back to the article, it doesn't really say how he overcame this revolt.
It's very vague.
And that's where I think this gets really interesting. What happened behind closed doors?
Backroom deals. Smoke-filled room.
Yeah, exactly. Did he make concessions? Was there...
Did he promise committee chairmanships or plum committee assignments?
Yeah.
Or
did he strike deals?
Did he agree to support certain policies? There's all sorts of possibilities.
And the article also mentions that no other candidates were formally nominated. So what does that tell you?
Well, I think that's a key detail because it suggests that, Johnson did. He did it effectively. He was able to neutralize the threat before it even reached the floor of the House.
Yeah. He either had enough support from the get-go.
Maybe. Or he was able to rally support at the last minute.
Yeah. And that's pretty impressive.
It is. I mean, to think that he was able to, kind of pull this off and avoid a really messy public fight.
Yeah. So what do you think happened?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say for sure without more information. But I think it's safe to say that Johnson is a skilled politician. He was able to navigate a very tricky situation and come out on top.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, too, like you were saying about that first ballot victory being so important. Some people might say that this quick resolution shows that Johnson is strong and he's politically savvy, but could it also be a sign of weakness?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right. Like, did he have to give up
so much? Did he have to make too many concessions? And could that come back to haunt him later?
Exactly.
It's possible that in his effort to maintain power, he actually weakened his position in the long run.
Yeah. And, I mean, this all happened very early in the year, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is January 3rd.
Right, this is like the first week
of the new
Congress.
Yeah.
So if he's already facing this level of pushback.
What would that say about the rest of the year?
Okay.
I mean, it could be a sign of things to come.
Right, but like maybe this...
It could be a very tumultuous year for Johnson and for the House as a whole.
So to our listeners out there, keep an eye on this. Pay attention to how this internal division might impact Johnson's agenda. See what kind of legislation he's trying to push through and how much opposition he's facing.
Or from his own party. Exactly. And maybe, do a little digging of your own. See if you can find out what those specific policies were that might have sparked this whole thing.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that aren't being told.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. And we'll be back next time with another deep dive.
Sounds good.